What does it take for McD's to get its mojo back?
Well, I mean, clearly McDonald's has been struggling with a way to communicate with a new generation in a lot of ways, and they've been trying.
It's a millennial problem.
Well, I think it's been a millennial problem has been the start of it, and they've been trying to spin their wheels to keep creating new products to try and solve the problem, and that's created its own set of problems because they've been very inefficient within the stores. But the reality is millennials clearly don't value McDonald's products the way the earlier generations do, and they don't have the same relationship with the brand that previous generations have had.
That is extraordinary.
But did
15th among millennials.
But did they ever? I mean, that never
sure
should have been their
well, not with
target
millennials,
audience.
but they did with young people. I mean, no question.
Absolutely.
But McDonald's is really geared towards low-income white males, right?
Well, that's part of it, but McDonald's also has been targeting children for generations. It's if you look at even my own two children, the McDonald's is one of their top brands that they like. So I think
they still go for the Happy Meal.
They still go for the Happy Meals, but once they turn into the tweens and teens, I think the relationship gets broken. But I think this speaks to a much larger issue: is that I think the execution in recent years has not been what it has been even 5 years ago. I think if they get back to the basics of cleanliness, efficiency, and speed, I think McDonald's can come back. If you take a look at the menu, back in the 1950s, McDonald's only had 9 menu items. Today, there are close to 150 of them. So it's just very astounding, and I think that's part of the reason why there are problems with execution in the restaurants.
JP, is McDonald's trying to do too much, please too many people?
I think they are. They're in a situation where they have to decide whether they're going to play to their core, play to the strengths that they've had for a long time, the brand, the relationships that they've had, or whether they're going to try and play to this new generation with new products. And they've been trying to do both, and firms tend to struggle when they try and do two very different things at the same time.
But McDonald's is not unique in trying to figure out what to do. Do they expand and grow, or do they focus on their core? So why are we hating so much on McDonald's for being so bad at this when they have good things about them? 25% of their revenue actually comes from breakfast. They own that market. They're working on customization. That's a good thing for consumers.
And it's interesting you mentioned breakfast in wake of the Tim Hortons Burger King merger this morning. I think it's going to be more important that McDonald's continue its A game in the breakfast space because Tim Hortons coffee will be added to Burger King across North America, and Tim Hortons, the chain itself, you'll see a lot more units in the U.S. So I think it will be important for McDonald's to keep up its competitive advantage, in the space.
JP, should McDonald's take a page from the Big Oil playbook? Big Oil figured out a few years ago that it doesn't make sense, really, to be an alternative energy or a renewables play. Do what you're good at. Oil extraction, natural gas extraction, refinement, distribution. That's what we do. Oil's going to be here for a long time. We're good at it. Burgers are going to be here for a long time. We're good at it. Why don't we stick to that?
Wait, can we take a moment and say how Eric was able to correlate oils and burgers in one sentence? It kind of made my day.
As I was thinking about it coming in today, I would tend to agree at this point in time. They've really reached a point where they've got the choice between trying to adjust what they're doing to adapt to new needs and wants, or to bring consumers to what they're good at. To the extent that they can bring consumers to their core and make their core happy, I think that's a great business plan. If they're looking for long-term growth opportunities, it's time to start thinking about completely different options other than kind of expanding within the McDonald's footprint, but starting to, if we're moving fast casual, maybe fast casual within McDonald's portfolio is a better option.
Well, what does that wind up looking like? Because like my question before, I mean, McDonald's seems disproportionately affected by these trends.
I think McDonald's is the top of mind. So right off the bat, we see the trends affecting them bigger than they are other players. But I think, again, McDonald's has built so much of its history and its success based on a branding relationship with their consumers. And the changes in Netflix and streaming video and things like that have interrupted the ability of these big brand names to build these brand reputations, especially with millennials. And we're seeing that happen. And they need to find a solution, or they need to go back to the core.
Is the solution to go buy Five Guys?
I'm not sure if Five Guys is the right option because it's too much of a close competitor with McDonald's. I would actually go with something completely different, but in the fast casual space. I mean, in some ways you look back to their ownership interest in Chipotle 10 years ago, and it makes a lot of sense from them, from their perspective. I understand why Chipotle didn't want to maintain the relationship, but that would have been a better option in many ways than a Five Guys, I think.
What do you think, Steve? Is fast casual the way for McDonald's to go?
I'm not sure I agree with that statement, given that McDonald's already had owned several fast casual brands. Chipotle was mentioned. They've also owned Boston Market and Donato's in the past. And I think one of the reasons why they got out of that business was to return to the core in the early 2000s. And that's why you saw a big return to same restaurant sales growth by the mid-2000s.
Are expectations just a little bit too high for McDonald's? I mean, we want to see growth like Chipotle, right? McDonald's isn't going to be that company. We're not going to have that kind of growth.
Well, no one can beat Chipotle. In fact, I think in the next several years, I'm not sure if Chipotle will be the Chipotle we saw even 5 years ago.
So what qualifies as a growth restaurant that investors will be satisfied with in the quick service restaurant space?
Well, I think you'll want to see a combination of strong unit growth as well as strong organic, or as I say, same restaurant sales growth. And that's going to have to come with a more aggressive or a rethinking of their marketing strategy. Or like I said.
Does that mean get out of the U.S.?
Well, certainly if we're looking for growth from McDonald's perspective, the best options are going to be outside the U.S. There's no question that given that there are challenges with the younger generations, we've clearly reached oversaturation with McDonald's. I feel like in the U.S., even same-store sales will be difficult. I think if we're looking at the idea that McDonald's is entering a mature phase as kind of as a company in some ways, that's a harvesting period to some extent. We should be looking at operational effectiveness, return to the core, generate as much cash as you possibly can, and growth maybe doesn't become the #1 priority, at least within the U.S. market, especially.
People talk about how good Burger King now is at operational efficiency. Are they that much better than McDonald's?
Well, I mean, they have certainly made improvements in the past 4 years under 3G Capital's ownership. I think one of the reasons why Burger King pursued Tim Hortons is that it too has excellent operations, and it gives them an additional halo, so to speak. So I think McDonald's has some catching up to do in that regard.
But everyone has the same problem. Where do you grow organically? You can only cut costs so much. You can only improve margins so much. You can only rely on your products so much. Everyone has the same issue as to who do you sort of go out to, what product do you show?
Exactly. I think it speaks to the fact that there's been a lot of restaurant growth in the last 20 years, and the spending is not what it was coming out of previous recovery, so it's really a market share battle.
It may be too early to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but at what point, JP, do people start pointing fingers at Don Thompson and say, this is on your head, you're the CEO, it ain't working?
I think it mostly, I would point to two things. One, if they continue to try new things and continue to have to scrap them, and whether it be new products, new marketing strategies, new branding, whatever it is, if they continually have to scrap them, that's a clear sign of a leadership problem. The other one is if there's a clear sense that there's a focus on the core, there's return to the existing business, but they're unable to amp up the profitability within that environment in order to kind of show that they're doing it successfully.
One of the things that I always wonder about McDonald's is why don't people reward them more? Pepsi has had this problem, right? Why don't people reward McDonald's more for the quote-unquote good things that it has tried to do? You know, the people say, and I'm not sure whether it's true, that McDonald's sources better quality ingredients. They put more salads on their menu. They've tried to be healthy. They get nothing out of it.
They've tried, but you mentioned salads as an example, and CEO Don Thompson even said himself that salads do not get much more than 3% of total sales. My question is, I think it really goes back to the issue of menu bloat, and if they can go back to the menu items that have worked so well for them in the past.
And also, the more menu items that you have, the longer it takes for someone to make the menu items, because you have a more diverse array, which takes up time, and it's called fast casual. Right? It's quick service. It's not called take 10 minutes and then get your food. That's part of the issue. And Eric, to your point, I should point out they did name a new USA president, right? So
they did, yes.
Well,
yes.
A new/old USA president at this point in time.
Right.
We're returning back to the core is what the signal that I'm sensing kind of feels like.
No, look, the revolving door is already starting to spin underneath Thompson. My question, he's only been CEO since the middle of 2012. Right. That's why I say perhaps it's a bit early, but eventually those questions are going to start dogging the CEO.
Absolutely.